I often get comments on this channel that the hacks and the demonstrations that I present are not realistic and that the chances of finding these things are unlikely. Basically, I'm just leading you on into thinking that hacking can be this super easy thing where you just put in one extra number on a request and voila, magic, you're a hacker now. And I think the reason that I get these comments is because we're constantly being bombarded with very sophisticated sounding hacks, cross-site request forgery, server-side request forgery, SQL injection, no SQL injection, and all these different technical hacks. These are the type of bugs that are going to be more on the side of the syntax, whether or not the code or the input has sanitization applied. And so those types of hacks are very sexy, right? They sound cool, they look cool. But in actuality, the vulnerabilities that are the most common are really just a door being left unlocked. And I want to go over with you a couple of reports that demonstrate that, as well as taking a look into the OWASP top 10 on both the typical web application level and then the API level. First report I want to go over with you was reported back in late 2023. It was disclosed to the public just about 8 months ago. So let's go ahead and take a look. Summary. This is coming from Asterion04 for the program of GitLab. He says, I found a way to change the password of a GitLab account via the password reset form and successfully retrieved the final reset link without user interactions using just its email address. Now check out the steps to reproduce. Go to forgot password, enter the victim's email, and intercept the request with burp suite. Just grab the request, intercept it, manipulate it. We right click on the HTTP editor. We do a content type converter to JSON. Basically just get the payload or the request to be readable to us in a JSON object. Once we have the JSON, you simply change the line that says the user email is victim@gmail.com to an array. So instead of just passing in one email, Asterion is passing in 2 emails. Nothing crazy. Literally just puts in his email. Forward the request, and you should get an email containing the reset link that was sent to both emails, victim and attacker. Click on the reset link, change the password, and done. You can now log in as the victim using the new password. By just knowing the victim's email address on GitLab, you can take over their account by changing their password without user interaction, since the attacker gets the same email as the victim. I mean, it doesn't get any more simpler than that. You know what I mean? I think the most complicated thing about this report was the content type converter, right? To just get the JSON object, right? But outside of that, just to have thought, to be like, I wonder what would happen if I put a second email in there. Will the backend server iterate over the emails and process those? Well, apparently in this case it did. And we see that this was rated as a critical, a severity of 10, improper access control, generic, with a bounty of $35,000. That's pretty massive. And attacking the reset password form, typically you would expect those types of areas to be well protected. But as we see here, just a simple slip up in development. I mean, it's just so simple. This was not a technical hack, okay? And here we see improper access control going over into the OWASP top 10. Yeah, I know we're only on 2021 still, but don't worry. 2025 is coming soon, and I can't wait to make a video on that. So stay tuned. Make sure you hit that subscribe button below. Here we see that broken access control is the #1 vulnerability on web applications today. Things that were more technical, right? Like injection, XML external entities, which is also like an injection, cross-site scripting, deserialization. Those things are like down here. You see what I'm saying? They're down here. Server-side request forgery. Sounds awesome. Sounds so magical and mystical and just badass. Number 10. Okay? I think what's happening is as these web frameworks for developers come out, it's basically reducing the chances for technical vulnerabilities to be seen. It's become so easy to create technically sound code. It's allowing people who don't think of the more secure business logic that needs to be put in place, which is why between 2017 and 2021, broken access control went from number 5 to number 1. Okay. Now let's go over the second report. This one is worth a little bit of a deeper dive because it seems super simple, but you're going to see that the big money maker in this report was not in any hacking, but rather in some debating into the criticality of the report. Okay, so this report was submitted to HackerOne. Yes, HackerOne's very own bug bounty program. And you can see that this is a simple IDOR, an insecure direct object reference. IDORs have been basically renamed to BOLA, broken object level authorization. But, you know, tomato, tomato, IDOR, BOLA really doesn't matter. Basically, this hack is just changing an ID and pwnage happens. So let's take a look. Here we have Harsh D. Ranjan, who has submitted this report back in August 24, 2023. It was disclosed about a week later, but you'll see that the actual money coming in happened further down the line, but we'll get there. We'll get there. All right. So Harsh says, hey team, while editing our licenses and certifications, if we change the ID number, we can delete other licenses and certifications. It can simply be done by editing the ID number in our GraphQL query. If we change the number from 1 to X possible range, we can delete all the licenses and certifications present between these. Then he gives the steps to reproduce. You make your own account, you make a second account for user A and B, you create licenses and certifications in both the accounts, you edit the certifications and intercept the request to Burp Suite, and then in the body, you simply change the ID number and you will be able to delete all the licenses and certifications present in HackerOne. For now, change the ID to the license certifications of the other accounts and it will be deleted. The point is, I've been told it enough to know that people think this doesn't happen. And here it is. And you see that the bounty was for $12,500. Okay. Not sure if I went over the bounty on the other one, but this one was worth $35,000. So by just this guy not doing anything technical, literally just adding a second email to see if the backend server would iterate over multiple emails, the man landed $35,000. Here we see this dude has landed $12.5 thousand by changing a single ID. This stuff happens. It does happen. And we can even come into the OWASP top 10 API vulnerabilities. The number one API vulnerability is broken object level authorization. You change an ID, you get to do something you weren't supposed to do. It's just that simple. Yeah, it's the most common, right? Everyone's vibe coding nowadays. I expect us to continue to see IDOR or BOLA listed in the top 10 for quite some time. Okay, so let's look into how Mr. Harsh had to fight to get a good payout on this. Okay, so here we see HackerOne staff. They say that they're, checking it out. They're putting it in triage, And then they say, congratulations. Thanks again for bringing this to our attention. It's much appreciated. Here is $2,500. And you're like, wait a minute. I thought this bounty was $12,500. Well, you can see that HackerOne has only presented Harsh with 2.5. Now, I feel like most people, would have just been like, oh, okay, and thanks. Let's take my money and appreciate it. I'll go find another bug. But no, Harsh bites back. He says, hey, HackerOne has rewarded the same behavior with high on this report, also as IDOR to delete campaigns, right? So IDOR, deleting something. My report is the same as that, just the affected product is different. So how is this a medium severity issue? Regards. And I guess he was heated because like 15 minutes later, he comes with a double post. He's like, I'm not being left on red, bro. He says, look, here's another one, another IDOR, which was also rewarded as high. while in my report with licenses and certifications are completely removed from the user's account forever. This should be treated as high, just like my previous reports. I want you guys to really just like check out the balls on Harsh right now. This dude is like, dude, I know this is not no medium. This has to be something more severe. But he gets a little bit just kind of ignored, in my opinion. This is no bash and hacker one, by the way. I'm just really just going over what has happened here and putting my little funny spin on my interpretation of the attitudes. HackerOne says, well, a fix has been deployed. Can you please verify if the issue is still happening? Harsh comes back and says, it's all good now. Thanks, bro. Thanks. Okay. And congratulations. HackerOne awards $50 for completing the retest. Okay. So now it's resolved. They want to make him feel like, hey, we are thinking about what you said. We're discussing it internally, the severity. We'll report back once we reach a conclusion. Then they come back and HackerOne staff, they say after applying the following CVS score, they categorize the severity as medium. Our decision was based on the following rationale. The impact is limited to a specific subset of data on the HackerOne platform, and the potential corruption of the affected data is not equivalent to a complete wipeout of all scopes. Wherefore, the other report you mentioned did, which we deemed to be more severe form of corruption. Thank you for your understanding and happy hacking. And Harsh is just like, whatever, bro. As you say, wink face. And they disclose it. Okay. Now, HackerOne staff just comes and says, hey, we've just done some redacting on some of the attachments. And looks like someone came in and said, hey, self-sign-up is not a barrier to a hacker. So the privilege required is actually none. You don't need any privileges to execute this attack. That automatically increases the severity. And, they come in and they say, apologies, we marked the score as privilege required low. It should be privilege required none. Requiring a self-sign-up account is not a realistic barrier for an attacker. The privilege required low should be reserved for an account type that an attacker cannot obtain trivially. With the adjustment, the overall severity is still coming out as medium, but it's important to be accurate. Harsh is feeling it right now because they basically have told him twice now that their assessment for the score is correct. Harsh bites back. Okay, so notice this went from changing an ID to now you're having to prove impact. You're actually having to convince the people to believe that the amount of damage that you have saved them from is greater than what they believe it to be. And Harsh does a great job on this. Here he says, thank you for the explanation, but I think that integrity should be high as well, as the potential corruption of the affected data is equivalent to a complete wipeout of all licenses and certs, even though it's a subset of data, just like all the reports. None of them were affecting other sections as well, but was accepted as a high issue. So he's saying, hey, look, those other ones also had a limited scope on their impact, right? Like your report was only affecting campaigns, I was able to delete the license certificates from the HackerOne. It matches the integrity description you provided. Oof. High. There is a total loss of integrity, complete loss of protection. For example, the attacker is able to alternatively, only some files can be modified, but malicious modification would present a direct, serious consequence to the impacted components. All right, so he's not letting up. Okay, that was on August 31st, 2023. About a week later, HackerOne comes back. They say, we want to inform you based on your insightful comment, we've reevaluated the report. Upon further examination, we come to the realization that we inadvertently overlooked a crucial detail in this IDOR scenario, the leakage of non-public data. When you remove the certification by changing the user ID, in the response, it exposes certain data points that should not be publicly accessible at this point. According to HackerOne staff, you get back the certification name, organization, issue date, expiration date, the cert ID, and the cert URL. While some data points, such as cert's name, are considered public, we had intended to keep the cert ID concealed from public view. Thanks to your demonstration of the IDOR, we have identified that it was indeed being displayed. We will keep the integrity score low due to the reasoning outlined above. However, your outstanding efforts in enhancing the security of our platform are highly commendable. Consequently, we will raise confidentiality from none to low. The overall combination from privilege required none to confidentiality low have the effect of bouncing the severity up to high. We will award an additional $5,000 bounty in order to correct your original bounty. Thanks for your engaging thoughtfully with us to correct our original error. We apologize for the original mischaracterization and are grateful to have had the opportunity to make a correction. They just like owned up to it, like right off the bat. So that's awesome that they found out like, hey, this was actually more serious than we thought. It actually has these other side effects that we didn't see the first time. You were right. They come back even better. HackerOne really just locks it in with showing their good business tactics. And they say, hey, hope you're doing well. The HackerOne team wanted to give you an important update on your recent bounty payment. Due to a recent review, we noticed some discrepancies in our bounty table for API HackerOne and HackerOne.com. This happened when we were testing a new feature, which led to some inconsistencies in the payment data around the high or critical severity ports. But no worries, we're taking care of it retroactively. You're one of the researchers affected, so you'll be getting an extra $5,000 to make up for that. We really appreciate all your awesome contributions. Thanks for understanding. Happy hacking. And with that, Mr. Harsh has received $12,500 off of an initial bounty reward of $2,500 by simply demonstrating and convincing them of greater impact than what they had seen. So, hacking is not everything, guys. Hacking is not everything. It's not all about, the payloads and the injections and all your opinions about what tools we should be using. At the end of the day, you can just check if the door's unlocked. And if they don't think that door's unlocked is a big deal, convince them that it is. And you could be potentially like Harsh. I hope to one day be like Harsh. I would love to get $12,500 and go to the buffet and, maybe buy some nice shoes. And with that, guys, I hope you had a wonderful time. Don't forget to smash like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.